We have the whole history of the wildcat banking period in the US, which is fascinating. All these
Yeah.
unregulated banks that were issuing currency that wasn't backed. It seems very, very similar to what is happening now. And what happened is a lot of regular people lost their life savings. And I worry, this is why I'm passionate about this. I worry that this is going to be the thing that causes the next recession, is a crypto crash. You're listening to a bonus episode of the Earmark podcast. Regular listeners know that most of our episodes are available for CPE credit on the Earmark CPE app. This one is a bit short, so we're not going to make it into a course right away. However, we might combine it with a related episode at some point in the future to make a CPE course, but no guarantees. In the meantime, download the Earmark app and check out our many free CPE podcast courses. And keep on listening to this episode. It's a great interview with Dr. Blockchain, more commonly known as Dr. Stein Smith, CPA and assistant professor in the Business and Economics Department at Lehman College, and one of the most well-known CPA crypto experts. I hope you enjoy. Hello and welcome back to the Earmark Accounting Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Oliver, CPA, and I am joined today by my friend, Dr. Stein Smith, CPA. Thank you so much for joining me, Sean.
How's it going, Blake? Happy to be on.
I apologize, Dr. Sean.
Dr. Sean, there we go. Close enough, right?
Hey, it's great to talk to you. You are the blockchain expert, crypto expert that I tend to think of in our profession. And
I try to be, thank you.
I'm excited to have you back because, we on the Cloud Accounting podcast have been talking a lot about cryptocurrency and stablecoins. I think people know that I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to cryptocurrencies. I like to say I'm a blockchain enthusiast. I love blockchain. I love the concept of it, but I find so much of what's going on in the crypto world to be very troubling, and especially stablecoins, because when I dig into this, I find they aren't so stable. In fact, there's really nothing backing them in the case of Tether, for instance. So I'd love to dig in with you on that topic, and maybe the theme for this episode is like, can Dr. Sean convince Blake to be a crypto lover?
I would love it.
What do you say?
Love that. No, and obviously, there is a ton going on right now out there with everything crypto related, blockchain related. I said stablecoin conversations are probably the hottest topic out there outside of NFTs, right? Which are a whole other ball of wax. But in terms of the, concerns that you and David raised on your last episode, which I tuned into, thoroughly enjoyed hearing the two of you go at it. There are some fundamental issues out there. I'm not here to argue that every single stable coin is perfect or Tether is perfect, but I also do want to sort of push back a little bit on this argument or this idea that we have these coins called stable coins that aren't backed by anything. So on the one hand,
let's go back for a second and
isn't backed by anything either. Sure.
Yes. Sorry, I just want to go back for a second for our listeners who didn't hear that episode. Let's just lay the groundwork. So we've got Bitcoin, the dominant cryptocurrency. We've got Ethereum, a little bit smaller, and then we've got a zillion other coins kind of filling out the market cap of crypto. And the market cap of the crypto economy is, Sean, do you have a number off the top of your head? I know Bitcoin's in the 600.
Sure. So the whole asset class is over $2.3 trillion right now.
And Bitcoin is the biggest. What's Bitcoin at?
Mm-hmm. I think that roughly it's about half of the total market cap. Top of my head.
So we have pure cryptocurrencies, and then we have the stable coins. And stable coins are theoretically linked to the dollar 1-to-1. And so stable coins have been really important. Would you agree that stable coins are really important to the functioning of crypto markets?
I would say that they are important to get more individuals involved, especially in the more current applications like DeFi or NFTs. Yes.
Okay, so I've been starting to pay attention to stable coins because I'm a big, proponent of, a digital dollar. I feel like the government is moving too slowly in this regard, and stable coins are kind of filling that gap. It's a great way to allow people to access the benefits of blockchain without the risks of the currency fluctuations that you get, right? But then
Correct.
I learn last week, a couple weeks ago, that the most popular stablecoin by like volume, market cap, Tether, they've never had an audit. The last time any accountant looked at anything that they've put out was September 30th. It wasn't an audit. And Tether's own terms of service state that they do not have to give you dollars in exchange for your Tether. So they say that it's backed 1-to-1 by the US dollar. They don't guarantee they'll give it to you. And then they don't even have the $80 billion of cash on hand to redeem that Tether. They claim to have it in mostly commercial paper, and it's never been audited. Like, who knows where this money has gone? And Tether, as I understand it, is like 12 people in the Caymans or something. And if they actually have $1 billion of assets, they're one of the largest banks in the world. So it just seems kind of crazy to me that we've got this stable coin with all of these assets, and it looks like a scam to me. Like, if I can't prove it, but it does not look good. And here's the risk, right? Even though Tether is, $78 billion market cap, there's like 80 billion of it out there. And that's a fraction of the overall Bitcoin crypto market, as you said, right? Based on that number you gave.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
70% of trades for Bitcoin on like the most popular exchanges are from Tether. So Tether is like, another way to think of it is the bank of crypto, right? So if the bank of crypto has a run on the bank and they don't pay out the Tether with US dollars, then couldn't that cause a massive structural problem?
Well, it could cause a problem, but not probably in the ways that you're thinking about, like, right? Because obviously Tether, it's the biggest one of these stable coins backed on a 1-to-1 basis by the US dollar, which I know is not entirely accurate, right? But that Tether, Circle, and all the other basically top 5 stable coins have been under pressure, and they have been trying to be more transparent as to how their coins are actually backed, right? And they aren't backed 100% by the US dollar. None of them are, right? It's always a combination of US dollar, commercial paper, and other types of instruments at that cash equivalent level. But the overall sort of risk here, Blake, isn't really a risk to the overall crypto asset marketplace. It's a risk to this one particular stablecoin. And to sort of highlight that, right? That yes, that there are individuals mainly, right? But institutions who are basically getting into Bitcoin and other crypto via Tether. Sure. But Tether is only one of many stable coins out there. And that as more and more of these types of questions and problems and to be transparent, all of these questions about Tether were actually first raised in 2019. I was actually giving a presentation on how to audit crypto on April 26th, 2019, when this headline first broke, right? That there was this gap of $800 million on the books of Tether. And yes, it's absolutely a issue, but over the last 2.5 years, Tether, under pressure, obviously has been trying to be much more transparent, and also has served as a real example and blueprint for the other stable coins who have entered into the marketplace after. And to just highlight one, I would say that really Circle is a dollar-based crypto that has really grown incredibly fast and actually has been audited. It was audited, I believe, by Grant Thornton. So
Yeah.
all of these lessons are being used elsewhere. And if there is an issue with Tether, then you can always convert the Tether into other crypto anyway.
Well, yeah, but you can't convert it into other crypto if people lose confidence in Tether. I mean, this $80 billion of Tether out there. Who runs Tether?
I mean, I don't know who the individuals are who are in charge at Tether, but I would argue that actually knowing who's in charge of any particular financial instrument isn't really relevant for most investors out there, right? You and I don't know who's in charge of our commercial banking system or who's in charge of how our trades are actually settled, right? But I mean, I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
really
but
have to know that in order to have
we
confidence in that system, correct?
yeah, we don't have to know that to have confidence in the
Yeah.
system because it's regulated, it's highly regulated,
hmm
whereas Tether is completely unregulated.
Well, I mean,
And
it's not unregulated, Blake, right? Right, because to your point, if there are individuals who are buying into crypto using Tether, all of those individuals, or I wouldn't say all of them, but a bulk of them are doing so via platforms like Coinbase or BlockFi, Kraken, Robinhood. And to get onto those platforms, you have to give over your SSN, driver's license, banking data. And so all of those transactions are overseen by the traditional regulators out there. So this whole idea that crypto is unregulated really is not true.
but the Tether is itself, and in fact, when you say that, it makes me think that people might have false confidence in something like Tether because they are buying into it via Coinbase. But when
Mhm.
they actually hold Tether, there is no tether to the US dollar. According to Tether's own terms of service, they reserve the right not to redeem your Tether. So, how is Tether better than a Chuck E. Cheese coin? Because the Chuck E. Cheese Corporation can refuse to redeem my coin for prizes if they want. It's in their terms of service on the back of your ticket. So,
Sure.
what I'm trying to say is that people don't know this about Tether.
Mhm.
I think that your average crypto investor has absolutely zero clue that Tether is like a dozen people in the Cayman Islands. Actually, who knows where the heck they are? We don't even know who they are, and they've never
Mhm.
been audited. We don't even know if these funds exist. So when you say they've been more transparent, what do you mean by that?
Sure. So in terms of them being more transparent, I mean they have been more transparent. They have been trying to be more accurate in how their coins are actually backed, right? They have been issuing reports. Now, I know they haven't been audited, but they have been trying to get more data out to the public. And to be honest, they've been also under pressure here in the US at the US Congress to try to be more upfront about how they actually do things. But in terms of this false confidence in this financial instrument, right? I don't think that anybody buying into crypto is doing so with a confidence that it's a low risk investment, right? There's a lot of conversation out there, Congress people, bankers, senators, every single day talking about how high risk crypto is. So the average crypto investor probably is more well informed on these issues about how the transactions work than the uh, average person, air quotes, on the street. So I
Well,
don't, so I don't think that people are going into this with their eyes blindfolded, Blake.
but the typical crypto investor is somebody who signs up for a Bitcoin account and puts $100 into crypto. Are they doing the research that you're doing?
Well,
No.
I mean,
They're
well, I mean
hearing from a
the
friend.
typical.
They're hearing
Mhm.
from a friend that, oh, this guy made, 100 times his investment on crypto. I'm going to get in on this action because it seems to be going up. And, you just said for a second ago, like Tether's trying to be more transparent. Give me an example. You don't even know who they are. Who is Tether? If they're with $80 billion, that would make them one of the, I think, top 50 banks.
I believe so.
And
Yeah.
we don't know who they are.
Mhm.
And that's okay that we don't know who they are.
Well, I mean, I don't really care who the people are. All that I really care about as an investor is that their financials are are accurate, right? And also, Blake,
They're
I
not
mean,
audited. Their
not
they,
yet,
their financials are
but it,
are unaudited. I mean, Bernie Madoff sent people financial statements, and people believed him,
mhm,
right? Would
mhm.
you trust unaudited financial statements from a company that you don't know?
Well, I
This is
mean,
what I can't wrap my head
that's not
around.
sure thing. No, and I mean, obviously, right, there is risk in any emerging asset class. Crypto is no different. Tether is the poster child. I would agree, right, for not being entirely understandable, or I say being able to be trusted by the average investor, retail person trying to get into crypto. But one, I do think that everybody understands that crypto does have risk involved in it. And then two, to your own point, most of these transactions aren't people buying and holding Tether. I have not heard of too many people buying and
Yes, I
holding
agree with you.
Tether, betting on it to go up, right? It's
Well,
an
it
on
can't,
ramp
right?
to get
The
into
whole
other
point is that
crypto
it's
assets.
supposed to be
Exactly.
the whole point of Tether is that it is one-to-one linked with the US dollar. And so people
Exactly.
will,
And then here, Blake, pull up
yeah.
the lifetime price chart of Tether. Its peg to the US dollar has held up pretty darn well
So far, because
so
people have
far.
trusted it. But
Yep,
why?
people have
Why do they
trusted.
trust it? When you actually look at it,
Mhm.
it doesn't look that trustworthy. It doesn't look like a financial institution. It looks like some people had a good idea for how to make a lot of money
Well, I
and
mean
might be scamming us.
that whole argument could honestly be made for any financial instrument, right? Most individual investors couldn't read a audit anyway, right? And so most investors, don't really care, don't really know, don't really understand the full extent of the audit anyway. Now, obviously, all of us have an idea as to what an audit is, what it conveys. Audits aren't perfect either, right? I can name 5 examples right now of major banking institutions had full audits and then ended up having to pay $100 million fines, had to restate earnings. So an audit is no guarantee anyway. Now, I do agree
So it
100%,
sounds like you're
right, that,
saying
that
that like
Tether should
audits
have
don't
audits.
matter.
Well, I would not go that far, but I would argue that audits are not the cure all for issues that can pop up with a financial institution.
Do you think
But
that financial
audits are
institutions should
important.
be do you think that all financial institutions should be audited?
See now, Blake, I'm happy you asked that question. What I would say is that any entity that is going to issue their own stablecoin should be classified as a financial institution, as a bank, right?
And
That if you are going to be
yeah.
the bank of crypto and operate this way, then in order to do so, here in the US, you should have to be chartered as a banking institution. And efforts to that goal are underway right now.
But here's the problem. Anyone can start a stablecoin. So
Sure.
Tether is not in US jurisdiction. It's not
Hmm.
we can't control it. We have no
Hmm.
control over Tether other than telling US citizens you can't transact in Tether. So
Correct.
how do you gain control over stablecoins and this market and these financial institutions that are unregulated?
Sure. So to answer that is basically the ongoing conversations right now, right? That the Stable Act that was put forward, I think at the end of 2019 or during the first half 2020, is a step toward that right direction. And that basically that the political attitude has now shifted that yes, we're going to have stable coins around. The chair of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell, in his commentary said that yes, there is a role and a home for these private stable coins in the US marketplace. But ultimately, right, it all comes down to if they are going to play in the banking space. And also, this is much bigger than just Tether, right? Tether is the poster child, right? But the whole fintech space with all of these firms holding assets, doing banking stuff, but don't have to be held to that same level of compliance as banks. That's the real issue here. Like it's isn't just Tether. Tether is an issue, absolutely, but it's a much broader sort of how do we regulate fintech in a way that one protects investors and consumers, but two helps to encourage innovation.
Well, and I agree with you on that. I think it's really important because your average investor doesn't have the time or inclination to go and do this research. And it's up to us as a society to have appropriate regulations in place to protect them. I mean, this is why we have the SEC. This is why we have rules about banks. We have the FDIC to ensure people's deposits. And what's cropping up is this entire unregulated financial industry. And what tends to happen in the past when this has happened, right? History tends to repeat
Mhm.
itself. And in the past,
Mhm.
what happened? It went up. People got really excited. A lot of people were committing fraud. It was unregulated. We have the whole history of the wildcat banking period in the US, which is
Mhm. Sure.
fascinating. All these
Yeah.
unregulated banks that were issuing currency that wasn't backed. It seems very, very similar to what is happening now. And what happened is a lot of people, a lot of regular people lost their life savings. And I worry, this is why I'm passionate about this. I worry that this is going to be the
Hmm.
thing that
Yep.
causes the next recession is a crypto crash.
No, and
Because
no, and I go ahead.
yeah, I mean, you look at, and again, go back to Tether, which is the thing that really stuck in my mind about this with 80. Let's take a look at the trading volume. With $40 billion of trading volume in 24 hours, you could
Hmm.
probably say that, Tether is a really important component of crypto markets because it allows people to exit positions to a position of what they perceive to be relative safety. But that's only because they believe that Tether is backed by dollars, when in fact it is not. According to the
Hmm.
terms of service, it might not even have enough assets, right? Like they may not, if there was a run on Tether, they may not be able to replace it. And, that could set in motion a spiral where people then try to exit, they can't exit, they sell, they sell, they sell, they sell, and we get a crash, right? That's what
Hmm.
happens in the past. That's how runs on banks
Absolutely.
happened in the 1800s and before. So what makes us think we're not going to be responsible for that? And I just feel like
Well,
CPAs, accountants, we should be pointing this out because we're the ones who actually have the knowledge to understand these complex financial instruments. So
and you know
I
me, Blake.
just
I mean, I've been out here talking about this, probably at least since about 2016 or so. And I'm all about trying to get us educated to help our clients better understand what exactly is happening out here. But but
yeah.
to answer your sort of bigger picture question, right? How is this going to end? Right. And I would say that yes, there's absolutely a risk of a run on these individual issuers. And then that run could then trigger runs in other commercial paper markets. And yeah, I mean, that's 100% a risk. But the only caveat that I would add there is that all of those risks, and I'm sure you read through the President's Working Group report white paper that came out back in October, where basically talked about those exact risks, right, of these privately issued stablecoins, talking about Tether
Hmm.
and Circle, calling them out, calling out all of these issues out there. And so now probably the one thing that I would say that sort of gives me sort of a more optimistic spin on it is that all of these issues, sorry, have been pointed out, ID'd, and are being worked on. Now, hey, now I'm all about trying to get the SEC to move a little faster on these types of issues and the FASB to move on these issues, but they are moving on them and they are aware of them. So, there is no
Hmm.
perfect balance, as you know, right, between innovation and regulation. But I would say that as the calendar rolls further into 22, that the regulators and policy is starting to actually catch up.
Let's hope so. I know they tend to move really slow. They tend to react. They tend to react after there's a big problem, and it kind of concerns me that two of the senators on the committee that it regulates cryptocurrency own cryptocurrency.
Oh man, like when I heard you and David bring this up the other day, I was like, man, that's the least of our problems. Haven't you heard
You
about all
think?
the insider trading? Out of all the
Oh yeah. I
insider
mean,
trading with all the Congress, I mean, so it is not a crypto specific problem. Come on.
well,
I
it's an
mean, it's a
overall
much
problem,
bigger, yes,
right?
yeah, it's a much bigger problem. And I'm all about if you're holding elected office and the policies you are writing are going to impact markets, you absolutely cannot trade. Even like business anchors on CNBC and on Bloomberg can't actively trade. Why?
Right.
Why? Because they're interviewing people who have that influence over asset management. Why are politicians different?
Yeah. Well, and that leads me to a question, which is I'm curious to know how much of your personal net worth do you put into cryptocurrency?
Sure. So, and I was actually checking this, I guess earlier today because I figured you would ask. Right now, it's about, well, it ranges depending on each day between 33% and 40%.
Of your entire net worth?
Yeah.
That's quite a stake.
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
mean, that's a big bet. But then
Yeah.
here's the question is like I know that a lot of people out there talking about cryptocurrency and promoting it are heavily invested in it. So how can anyone trust you as an individual, as a CPA, to give them objective advice if crypto craters, like I think it will, and goes to zero, many of them will, you're out all that money.
Mhm.
And if it goes to the moon, like a lot of crypto enthusiasts want, you'll be
Mhm.
a millionaire or a billionaire. So
So
how can we trust you?
I'm a nice guy, first of all, Blake. No, but all things
I mean, how can
being,
we and not just you, I don't mean to pick on
sure,
you,
yeah,
Sean, but how can
no,
we
it's fine.
trust any of the CPAs, influencers out there pumping up crypto? Well, promoting it when it seems like maybe you're just pumping it up.
Well, what I would say there is that I don't ever promote crypto or pump crypto. You can look at any conversation I have. I don't ever pump it. I believe in it. I don't ever try to convey that to other people, first of all. And two, if there are influencers like on TikTok promoting their own coin, or there are lots of adults, people in the adult entertainment business now having their own coins and tokens, I mean, that should be taken with a hefty grain of salt, obviously, right? Because all of those people are purely self-interested. But in terms of how do you trust somebody who has a stake in the industry they are talking about, I mean, then it gets awfully tough to try to analyze who I can trust, right? Anybody who's on a business network talking about stocks, right? They in their company obviously own some shares in that company. Anybody who's commenting on the restaurant industry, who's a restaurateur, how do you trust them? I mean, you're trying to sort of pick who to trust. The only answer that I have is that always try to find people who are objective and level-headed, one, and two, if they are pushing any one token or any one asset, that's always a big red flag, I think personally.
Okay. That's a good point. I do not mean to impugn your integrity as an individual. I just see it as, when you get to the politicians own the crypto and they control the lawmaking, and then
Yeah.
you've got influencers out there who are saying, like, and you are very reasoned when you speak about it, but there are people out there who, like the CEO of Kraken, who just makes ridiculous statements on television that are completely absurd. And people buy based on that, right? Because they trust him. I'm just shake my head. Now, maybe I'm totally wrong, right? Like maybe I am completely missing the boat, and all you crypto enthusiasts are going to get super rich, and I'll just be sitting here. But at least I feel like I'm saying what I see. And actually, I don't invest. I don't have any crypto because, like, I don't have to worry about bringing the market down with what I say. Not that anyone's listening. Not that enough people are listening to this, right? But
Oh, come on, Blake. You guys
I
have the
can
top
just
rated podcast out there.
yeah, right. Right. So, I guess well let's, thank you for answering my hard questions. Maybe we can just talk for a moment if you got time about like the future,
Sure.
what you see, because you've
Sure.
obviously bet a lot of your own money. You've put your money where your mouth is and you've bet on crypto. Where do you see it going? And like give me numbers. Like do you believe that Bitcoin is going to be over 100 grand, $1 million a coin like Kraken CEO is saying? Like what is the future?
Sure. So as far as the future goes, I mean, I do always try to be as level-headed and objective as I can. Thank you for that. But I would say that, sort of echo on your earlier point, that I'd say ultimately 85% to 90% of these coins and tokens are garbage, right? You know, that they aren't going to be
That's what
worth
I
anything in
worry
5
about.
years. No, they aren't
Yeah,
going to
like
be worth anything in 5 years, right?
right,
And,
and same like with
it's
NFTs too, right? Like
NFTs.
all these
Yeah.
right,
It's the, yeah,
people are buying this shit and it's going to go to zero and like it's going to evaporate. Sorry, continue. I don't mean to
not a
interrupt.
problem. No, that's fine. And you and I are probably the right age to be talking about Teletubbies, Pokemon cards, right? There were acid bubbles in those too, and they're worth nothing now,
Except
right?
Pokemon cards are still around, man. My
I
kid
know.
is playing with Pokemon cards. It's freaking ridiculous. That's never I mean,
Still,
I
jeez.
should have bought some of those 30 years
Yeah,
ago.
I
Jesus.
know, right? So no, but in terms of the future of it, and I do know that to sort of kick off your show, um, you were saying that you're very pro blockchain. I am too. I have Dr. Blockchain polo shirts, Dr. Blockchain hat. I'm very pro blockchain. And so that's where I think most of the enterprise adoption and most of the real tangible applications are going to be, right? For all of us. It could be tracing food, COVID passport documentation, any of those types of things that's in the public that all of us benefit from that all of us
So
benefit from having real-time access to. What?
I asked you to talk about the future, and you said in the future we're going to have COVID blockchain passports. Come on, man, it's going to be done
Listen,
with. We
listen, I'm not
no more
saying
COVID.
that I want it. I will not get political
Okay.
here, Blake, but I'm just saying that it's a possibility.
I don't even want to
But
think about that, but yeah, I
uh,
know it's fair, right? And
yeah,
whatever virus gets released into the world in 5 years, we can have a passport for that, right?
exactly.
Oh man,
And as far as crypto goes, I mean, I do think on the one hand, Bitcoin is head and shoulders above the vast majority of other coins. It's Bitcoin, Ether, and then everyone else. Bitcoin, I think now it's almost kind of boring these days. I don't talk about it as much because it's really become a institutional asset class. Now it's an asset class. It's a hedge against inflation, hedge against commodity risk, whatever. So that's more of a asset by itself. Now, in terms of where it goes in terms of being used, that's really, really interesting, I think. And we could probably do a whole other show on this whole idea of central bank digital currency, which is what you were talking about,
yes, yes.
which has some
Oh,
pros and has some serious cons. I have some serious doubts on that whole area. Just
what?
I have some serious questions.
You mean based on their
But
track record, you're not sure the U.S. government can handle creating a cryptocurrency?
well, I would say that based on their track record, one of their prowess was IT, and two, with their prowess with actually managing finances. I don't know how well that would go. One,
That's a very
and
diplomatic way to
two,
put it. Yes.
I always try to be polite. And two, there is always this issue that I mean, do you want the government, and I don't care who's in the White House, right? Do you want the government to have a traceable, permanent record of everything you ever buy now going forward? Probably not.
So
In an honest
most
moment.
people,
In
yeah,
an
I
honest moment,
imagine if you,
probably not.
well, I mean, even in a dishonest moment or an honest moment, if if you polled most Americans, I'm sure the vast majority would say that's a bad idea.
Yeah,
But that's what they've got in China now.
that's exactly what they have in China.
It's
Yep.
kind
And
of
they're
amazing to think that the government could, if it wanted to, figure out that you bought a Twinkie at 8:25 p.m. last Tuesday from this shop at this specific location.
yep. And then in China, they're also sort of adding that into their whole way of actually grading people with your social score, which in turn influences, are you able to get a job, get a loan? So it really, really is like straight out of George Orwell right there, possibly.
That it's even more Orwellian than Orwell could have
Yep.
imagined in many
Yeah.
ways, like restricting access to finance with social
Housing.
engineering.
Yep.
An
But on a
algorithm.
more optimistic note, right? I think
Yes.
that all kidding aside, I think stablecoins do have a role to play here. Like, I don't know if it's going to be Tether or Circle, but efforts are underway to have these folks be audited. Circle is audited. I mean, so that is going to ultimately sort itself out. I'd say honestly,
Yes.
I would honestly be shocked. I would honestly be shocked if that by the end of 2022 that there is not some more clarity on these issues, right? And
So I
um
guess
and so
the the
yeah,
takeaway then for our listeners is to get back to the original point, which is
sure.
would you agree, like, trade your Tether for Circle?
I don't ever talk about tokens on a individual basis, but I would say if you do have a choice between having a token that's audited and a unaudited token, I would choose the one that's audited.
Well, as a CPA, I can attest to that.
Love it.
Sean, that's all the time we've got today. I would love to have you back, and we can talk about more of the future of this, the coming regulation. Maybe you could keep us updated on that. It's been really a pleasure talking to you. And
Absolutely. But
if folks
had fun time.
if folks want to follow you, online, where's the best place for them to do that?
So the two best places to follow me online, and I post constantly on Twitter at Sean Stein Smith, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Sean Stein Smith.
Thanks, Sean. Talk to you soon.
All right, Blake, thanks again.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something new. And if you did, wouldn't it be nice to get some CPE credit for it? Well, I've got great news. My new app, Earmark CPE, offers free NASBA-approved CPE credits for listening to podcasts. Visit earmarkcpe.com to download the app. That's earmarkcpe.com.